Hello and welcome to Writing and Illustrating Children's Picture Books with me, Christian Fox. Now this series of videos is called 30 Essential Children's Books I Think You Should Be Aware Of, and as I've said before, these aren't necessarily what I consider to be the best children's books ever written, and these aren't my favourite children's books. Some are, some aren't. But these are the books I refer to most frequently in the classes I teach, whether that's at university level, whether it's in the video-based online courses I teach at children'spicturebooks.co.uk, whether that's in one-to-one workshop sessions with students, in all kinds of situations. These are the ones that seem to provide the best examples of character creation for writers and illustrators, for composition, for writing examples, for all kinds of reasons. These are the books I've kind of singled out. Now, because there are so many, I've split them into 3 groups of 10 for you to represent the classical market from around 1850 up to 1950, the middle ground market from the sort of early 1950s up to the late 1970s, and the contemporary market, which is kind of from the late 1970s, early 1980s up to present day. And today we're concentrating on that contemporary market with book number 1, Raymond Briggs The Snowman. Now, Raymond Briggs, famously curmudgeonly, in every interview he gives, he says he's not that keen on children, he's not that keen on children's books, he doesn't particularly like Christmas. He kind of revels in this curmudgeonly character he's created for himself. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Whether it's a fabrication he uses in interviews, who knows. He'd already done, around 1973, he'd already done his Father Christmas book, and he gave an interview with The Guardian which said that he was finding this sort of 32-page structure that I refer to. I go into that in a lot more detail in the online courses I teach. But children's picture books are composed most generally of this 32-page structure. He was finding that very restrictive. He was finding he just didn't have enough pictures to tell the story. So he decided to work in this comic strip format so that he could, in his Father Christmas book, so that he could create sort of 10 or 12 or more pictures on the page, rather than the traditional one big double page spread or just 2 pages. He found he just didn't have enough space to tell his story without using that comic strip format. It also meant that he could get around the problem of relating a narrative. Everything is done in direct speech, in speech bubbles. He was finding it even more useful because he was finding that the pictures could tell the story. Often he didn't even have to write a caption on there. So he'd done Father Christmas and found that kind of format worked better for him. Then he went on to do Fungus the Bogeyman in 1977, and he said Fungus the Bogeyman was all about slime and the nature of horrible beasts, horrible creatures, toilet jokes, all that kind of thing, and he wanted to break from that. So he decided in 1978 to create The Snowman as a kind of relief, a kind of break, a kind of change from the whole sort of Fungus the Bogeyman thing. Now, the other thing he did, again, it's in comic strip form. All the people are often surprised to find it's not only in comic strip form, but when they go back to the book, they find it's a completely wordless picture book. He found, as he started drawing it, he found the softer nature of the colour pencil illustrations he used to have a softer, kind of snowier, gentler, quieter feel. So he did the whole thing in coloured pencils to give that sort of softer feel to it. He also found that making it wordless and quiet sort of represented those snowy landscapes a lot better. In another Guardian interview, I don't only read The Guardian, they just seem to provide the best children's book author interviews. In another Guardian interview he gave, he said that another reason he did the whole thing in just coloured pencils, the earlier books had a mix of inked drawings and painted things and things like that, but the coloured pencils, he found his preparatory sketches, everybody had told him his preparatory sketches, his early pencil drawings were stronger than his later inked and painted drawings, which often, as is the case with a lot of illustrators, they often just lose something in translation. So he decided to try the experiment of just gently colouring up those original pencil drawings. So it goes from the original pencil drawings he did, and he gently coloured them, and he found that gave him a much fresher, a much more intuitive sort of drawing style. So it's got the sort of comic strip format, the wordless picture book format, that kind of coloured pencil nature, all of which you don't generally see in any other children's picture books. If you think about it, children's picture books by their nature tend to be brash and colourful and large scale and all singing and dancing affairs, or at least they've kind of evolved to be that in the contemporary market. Raymond Briggs's books always stand out by being much more subtle, much more gentle. They also have this sort of comic strip, graphic novel, whatever you want to call it, format, which again is very unusual in a children's picture book. So they're noteworthy for that reason alone. There's another big significant difference in The Snowman that you often don't find in other children's picture books. In 71, Briggs's parents died. In 72, his wife died. It's The Snowman itself has often been perceived by interviewers, by journalists, as a book about death. Briggs himself doesn't think that's necessarily true, but he said it might be true. He was going through a difficult period in his life. At the end of The Snowman melts. The snowman effectively dies. It's a rare example of a children's picture book with a tragic ending. Now that's almost impossible these days to get past the editor, to get past the publisher. They really will resist the idea of a children's picture book being read to a child at bedtime. What happens in the end, Daddy? The snowman dies. Okay, so this tragic ending is a really unusual thing. Without that tragic ending, The Snowman wouldn't be anything like as powerful a book. He'd already achieved a lot of success with the Father Christmas books. He did Father Christmas Goes on Holiday, Fungus the Bogeyman. He was already a very well-respected, very prolific author, illustrator. And without that kind of level of fame behind him, he might not have got away with the idea of the tragic ending. He's always said he just writes the book the way he likes it. He doesn't necessarily like to conform to what editors expect of him, what he thinks children expect of him, or anything else. He just does what he thinks is right for the book. Now, obviously, he has a level of success behind him which gives him that kind of license, that kind of liberty. You won't necessarily have that, but it really makes The Snowman work. I think almost everything in The Snowman is worth taking a look at as an example for you, for writers, for illustrators, the way the story is constructed, the way the story is paced. One last aspect that's worth noting is the animation came along in around 1982 and introduced the whole sort of festive, the whole Christmas element. That does not appear in the original book. There's no Father Christmas. There's no snowman party at the North Pole. There's no Christmas trees. Yes, he and the boy fly. Yes, obviously it takes place in winter time, but there's no Christmas aspect to the book at all. He said he absolutely didn't want... He'd already done a Christmas book. He didn't want to just become Mr. Christmas. Subsequently, that's what's happened because of the fame of the Snowman, or at least the fame of the John Coates animation of the Snowman. He's become one of the most merchandised characters representing Christmas ever created, but that wasn't what his original intention was. He resisted the idea of the animation, he said, also for a long time, because he was fearful that it would be crassly commercialized. He subsequently said, all right, that's what did happen to it, but he resisted it for a long time, and he thought it was actually done very well, but he resisted the idea of the book being commercialized. The Snow Dog, which came along in 2019, I think it was, 2018 possibly, had nothing to do with Raymond Briggs. Okay, so that's a completely different thing. Yes, he gave his permission for a sequel, or for a sequel animation, and there was a spin-off book from that. But it was not drawn by Raymond Briggs. It represents a beginning of the sort of contemporary market because of the associated animation, the merchandising, the format, the way things have gone in the last 20, 30 years or so. The Snowman it almost represents a starting point of that, and it represents for me the point at which I came out of university. It was more or less simultaneous with the point at which I was at university and came out of university, and everything that followed kind of led from that. So that's why I use it as the first book in the contemporary period. You should definitely be aware of Raymond Briggs's books in general, and particularly The Snowman. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful for your studies if you want to become a children's book writer or illustrator. If you've enjoyed it, give me a like, comment in the section below on either this particular video or for subjects you'd like to see me cover in other videos about children's books. On the free YouTube channel you'll find not just these videos about essential children's books, but other subjects to do with children's books in general. Subscribe for every time I upload a new video. You might also want to take a look at childrenspicturebooks.co.uk, where you'll find I've created an online video-based course in how to become a children's book writer or illustrator. So have a look at that one. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.